Hello. This is Jordan. Welcome, Jordan.
Hello, Mina.
Jordan, you were a student here on creative media production.
Yeah, I was, I think.
Okay. When did you leave?
I left 2011, I think it was,
2011,
so
right.
4 years ago now.
It's quite a while ago now, yeah. What did you enjoy the course?
That's a very loaded question, Mina.
Yeah.
But no, I did. The course
No, that's what you can say.
was brilliant. It was definitely the first step on to what, well, I hope to call my career in film eventually.
Yeah.
It gave me a foundation of everything I needed to know, and to such an extent that I think the college course was so good that the first year of university, I'd already learnt everything in the college. So I suppose it was very good in that way that it almost surpassed a university level of teaching.
Yeah. I think you often find that at university, and I think for some of our audience here today, when you go on to university, the first year can feel like a bit of a repeat, can't it? I mean, that's good to hear, though. So it sounds like we gave you lots of, sort of skills.
Definitely.
What do you think were the best bits of the course? What did you enjoy doing most?
I think the best bits of the course, by far, obviously, not counting the lecturers, which were, of course, the best part of the course.
Well, it goes without saying.
Obviously. But it was the amount of almost structured freedom, because it was very much, here's some guidelines, go and make something, and you've made it, we'll come back, we'll talk about what went well, what didn't go well. And it was nice to be able to do that and kind of learn from mistakes that you made yourself rather than mistakes that you were told to make, which is definitely, it's invaluable, because you know exactly what you did wrong and exactly what you did right and exactly what you could do to improve it the next time you make something, the next time you inevitably make something.
Yeah. I like that. I like sort of saying structured freedom. That's sort of, it's quite a nice sort of term, isn't it? So, did you make lots of mistakes?
I think I definitely made a lot of mistakes, and I continue to make a lot of mistakes. I think the day I stopped making mistakes, something's going horribly wrong.
Yeah.
But no, college is an environment where you can continue to make mistakes and it doesn't affect you too badly, because that's why you're in college, is to learn from mistakes you make. And especially with film and TV, the amount of mistakes will be enormous.
Yeah.
But it's good to do them now, to know what to do, what not to do, so that when you are in a position where you're getting paid to do it, you don't make them, and then you don't make them and stop getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
It's good to get them all out of the way now, because it's impossible to not make a mistake. I think, but college is perfect. It's a perfect incubator.
I think that's a really good point, actually, because quite often I think students worry about doing stuff because they're worried about kind of making mistakes or failing, and so much kind of I suppose stress at school put on achieving and passing tests and constantly kind of achieving that. It is good to make mistakes, and I think if you're not making some mistakes, you're not practicing, and if you're not practicing, you're not learning. So it's a bit of a cycle.
No, exactly, and I wouldn't worry about making mistakes at all. And you'll make something, and you can make a film, and it's the worst film that's ever been made, but you'd learn an enormous amount from it. And even if no one ever sees it, you're going to know what to do, what not to do. And that's why, I think that's why most of the people in the room are here, is to make films because they like film or they like TV. And it's very easy to slip into becoming a perfectionist, I think, and only ever wanting to make the best thing ever, and only ever wanting to make something that is perfect in every single way, and you're just not going to do it. The best filmmakers in the world won't make a perfect film because it won't be perfect to them, but it could be perfect to someone else. It's very subjective of things you make, especially in a creative course, because it's very difficult to mark an art form, because I think film to an extent is an art form. Maybe other things aren't art form. Jersey Shore perhaps can't really be considered art. I don't know. But don't worry about not making a perfect film. Just make something,
Mm.
because you made something that didn't exist beforehand, and then you can figure out how to make something afterwards.
Okay, good. What about? I think one of the things that quite often students struggle with while they're on the course is not struggle with, but maybe tend to not pay so much attention to is pre-production and pre-production planning and all those kind of perhaps a bit dry, sort of boring maybe tasks that we kind of get you to do. In your sort of experience looking back now, do you think was that valuable, sort of teaching those?
I think
sort of production,
it's enormously
pre-production?
valuable, as much as you might not enjoy it, because I know, especially when I came to college to do film because I enjoyed film, and then I found myself doing things I didn't enjoy. But that's just a part of what filmmaking is, especially when you're making your own films that are much bigger budget, and it's your money going into it. The more planning you do, the more money isn't wasted, the less money is spent. For example, my graduation film that I did was a budget of £3,500, which was very small for a short film, and there were an enormous amount of difficulties in pre-production. There was a lot of, I think everything that could have possibly went wrong, and because some aspects of pre-production weren't done as much as they could have been done, more money was spent, and we ended up going over budget in certain departments by, well, our art department budget was £200 and we spent £950. So that was, enormous amount of money. But learning, again, sounds very cliche, but made that mistake now. I'm never going to make that mistake again, because that was crazy money.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So pre-production, do pre-production. And that's the gist of it, even if it's horrible.
Yeah. Were there, I'm going to ask open and honest questions, I think, but were there any sort of parts of the course here that you didn't enjoy or you didn't think, looking back, were perhaps not useful? Or
Well, I suppose the course I did was the BTEC, so it might be slightly different now. I don't know.
Yeah, these guys are doing OCR, actually, which is a slightly different course, yeah.
I'm not sure.
Not sure.
I
Have
suppose,
to think on that one.
I suppose the one thing is maybe, and I don't even know whether this is something that could be changed in any way, or it might have already changed, but and it might be just because I'm a masochist. There wasn't enough work.
Okay.
We weren't pushed enough, I guess, and wasn't driven enough, or, I mean, this is something that continued through to university as well. I didn't feel that all of us weren't pushed enough. Like, in our third year of university, the entire year we had less than 10 lectures. So
Right.
not quite sure what I was paying for, but still, that's a different story. But
So do you sort of mean that perhaps, a lot of people are probably thinking, oh my God, I've got loads of work to do, and not wanting to hear this. Do you mean perhaps you wanted more, when you say more work to do you mean sort of maybe more productions or more little workshops?
yeah, I think more little workshops.
Getting cameras out more, that
Yeah,
kind of thing?
little workshops, more, make a film over the weekend, kind of things like that. Not necessarily things that are part of the syllabus
Yeah.
or the
Maybe those sort of short,
grading.
fast things.
yeah, just
okay.
doing short things,
Yeah,
just stuff to make stuff to practice.
right.
But something I definitely found that, because it wasn't being given to me, a good thing to do is to make it for yourself.
Yeah.
So give yourself little challenges, or with people, and say that I'm going to make a film in 2 days. Or something that's really good fun actually is if you write down a load of genres and a load of adjectives, put them in a hat, and pull out 2, and then you have to make a film in that style. That's great. For, like, the last one I did was an electro noir, and it's just a ridiculous film. It makes no sense at all, but it just makes stuff. Like, I wouldn't worry too much about not being in a situation where you're forced to do work. Just make a situation where you force yourself to do work, because it'll be invaluable in the long run.
Yeah.
Just make more stuff.
Okay, that sounds good. So, sort of moving on from this course then. So you say you went to university. Which university did you go to?
I went to Newport Film School, which sadly doesn't exist anymore,
Right.
but has been transferred into the University of South Wales in Cardiff.
Okay. And what course did you do? What was the course?
I did film and video.
then? Video.
So it was on much the same trail as the BTEC that I did here. It
Yeah.
was just kind of further education.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying your first year, you felt like you were taken back a bit. It was sort of a bit of a
Yeah, well, I suppose it wasn't necessarily
skills building, or
taken
yeah.
back.
Yeah.
It was more a recap on everything that I'd already done in college. And I
Yeah.
suppose they do that because a lot of the people that they'll be having in have come
Yes.
from A levels and
Yeah.
different departments,
levels.
different qualifications that might not have been to do with film at all.
Mm.
So I think the first year you have to kind of prepare yourself for it to be a foundation level,
Mm.
and you will end up going over things you've done before, and it can be
Yeah.
really frustrating, but use that time to do other things as well as
Would it
what
be
the university asks
yeah.
you to do.
Would it be fair to say that, although that might have been a bit frustrating, you felt comfortable though? Because sometimes I think a leap to university can be a bit scary, and you're sort of thinking, "Oh my God, you know what's going to happen?" But when you got there, you did feel sort of comfortable.
Yeah,
Is that true to say? Or?
It was.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people there were, overwhelmed with the amount of new stuff that they have to
Yeah.
learn. They may not have ever picked up a camera before, and they're
Yeah.
suddenly having lectures on cinematography and how to compose shots, and it could probably be way too much. But if you
Yeah.
have got that foundation already, you've got a basic understanding of filmic language,
Mm.
and you can understand where everything's coming from. And if you already have that, the information's going to stick with you much
Mm.
better, and you're going to
Yeah.
advance a bit more. Even though you might know everything,
Yeah.
you'll pick up more.
Okay. So, moving on, sort of perhaps from the first year then in university, you sort of went on. You sort of talked a bit about your final project, but so how did you enjoy university? What did you do there? What did it add to you as a filmmaker? Do you think?
Well, perhaps I shouldn't say this, but I went to university. The degree was always secondary. The degree was going to be important, but the degree was always secondary. And the main reason I went to university was to network, was to be in a situation and find myself in an environment wherein I was surrounded by as many people who were working in what I wanted to work in as possible. And you kind of breed an environment where things get made, you learn things. And as much as the course was important, and I enjoyed the course, that networking and the people I met and the people that I became friends with, and not necessarily from a kind of go mental party every day point of view, which that is important. I recommend doing that. But from a just being with people who are like-minded, and you do meet people who later down in the line are going to be enormously valuable for a career in getting you jobs and making a name for yourself in your film and TV in the industry you want to be in.
Yeah.
But I would recommend going to university because it provides a very good environment for that. But while the course is very useful and you do learn an enormous amount, I wouldn't worry too much about acing everything.
No.
Because a lot of people I've found and have spoken to who are working in the industry, they found that, excuse me, everyone in university went in with the intention of, I'm going to do everything to an A standard. I'm going to do everything perfectly. They're very academic people, they do everything very correctly. And to a large extent, struggle in the actual film industry world. Whereas the people that kind of go in with the intention to get a 2-1 rather than a first, and they do a lot of the work and do it very well, but it might not be perfect from an academic point of view. But also on the side, do their own projects, make their own things, live, in the first steps of what is the outside world, outside of a rigid education system.
Yeah. And kind of.
I find those people might be a bit of conjecture, but make better films and understand the film set and sort of advance their career a bit faster. And I'm not saying those people who do go in with the intention to ace everything don't get anywhere. I'm sure a lot of people have gone into like that and done very well for themselves, obviously, because they've got a first in a degree. But it's finding a nice balance between the two and being able to understand the importance of a degree, but also understand that you're there to make films.
Yeah. Okay. You were saying particularly perhaps in your last year, you didn't really have that many lectures. Do you think? I mean, perhaps obviously that might be a kind of bad thing. But do you think you learnt at university it gave you a lot more confidence, and you perhaps you felt that you had to do it for yourself, and you talked about perhaps when you were at college, it's just sort of practice and do things for yourself and do little one-day projects.
Yeah.
Do you think at university it was a bit like that as well, and you sort of headed more in that direction?
Yeah, definitely. I think again it breeds an environment where you have to make things for yourself and do things for yourself, which is very much it's what it's going to be like when you leave university.
Yeah.
You do have to just do things and find things for yourself by far, and confidence on. Not just on a film set, but just in general.
Yeah.
It gets you everywhere. You could be, you could not be able to do a job very well, but if you're very confident about it, you can do it very well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's
almost like trying to get into that kind of mindset.
Yeah, definitely.
Where it's sort of, all right, I don't know, I'm not quite fully confident with, I don't know, being a sound operator, but I've done it enough, and I can.
Yeah.
I think I can handle it.
Yeah.
So go for it. Kind of.
Well, I think being a crew, or film industry in general, it's quite a ruthless world, from what I've seen. And, you do get people come in who are new runners and they're just out of college and they're on a trainee position, and they're very timid. You can see they're not very confident at all. They're not going for it, and. You don't see them come back. No. You do have to go in and be very, I know what I'm doing, I can do this. I'm here to do the job. And if someone sees that in you, they can rely on you to do the job again afterwards. And they can rely on you to such a degree that you might get a job out of it. It's very much, excuse me, it's not playing an act. I had something really good for that and it's lost it.
Perhaps building up that experience, and it's incremental, isn't it? I suppose you can sort of gradually build up to having that sort of confidence and being comfortable with those roles, and those things increase. I think when I first started teaching it, I was kind of a bit sort of scared of being in front of a group internally, but on the outside I'm sort of holding it together perhaps. And I think you just become, as you get more practice and a bit more confident, you just get easier and easier in those roles. Yeah,
it's definitely practice. I mean, something I mentioned to the guys upstairs is that something that's invaluable on a set is to be able to remember everyone's names instantly. Because someone will say, go and take this to this person, and you need to know who exactly it is. And something I do, and it's very ridiculous, very embarrassing, is to practice remembering names. Is I get a load of household objects, I put them in, like, on my bed, and then get little bits of paper and write names down on them. And then I name all my individual household objects. So, like the mug will be called Terry, or the pencils will be called this. Yeah. And then I try and scan it and remember it all. And then I leave the room, do whatever, and I come back in and I have to try and remember each name. It's ridiculous, and I look like an idiot because I'm doing it on my own in my room, and it looks like I have no friends at all and I don't have a life, and I'm naming mugs. But it's enormously useful just to practice being able to recall names as quickly as possible. So, practice. Yeah. Well, it makes perfect to be really cliche, but it's enormously valuable. Even if you look like an absolute idiot, just do it.
Yeah.
and then don't tell anyone apart from when you're in a room with like, 20
when you're on
people.
film.
Yeah,
When you're being recorded, then you can
brilliant.
tell people, yeah. Yeah, I know, it's that sort of word association memory thing. I remember learning Spanish, and the Spanish for cow was vaca. So I imagined the cow vacuuming fields, and I've never forgotten it. So, those techniques do work. So, moving on to, what you've done since university, you've touched on that a little bit. So you mentioned running on films. And I think sort of film sets they are kind of like, almost like a little family, aren't they? Or sometimes a big family. And I think knowing everybody's name in that family is really important. But so tell us what you've done since university. So you mentioned films and-
Well, I was very fortunate in that I worked on Doctor Who for the last series of Doctor Who just gone, and that was my first running job. So I was very much thrown in at the deepest end I think I could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
But having some sort of preparation beforehand, which I did, I prepared roughly what I needed to do. And being thrown in a deep end is incredibly useful because it forces you to learn everything. And again, don't go in being absolutely terrified. Go in, you can be terrified on the inside, but it's about confidence, because without going in, as I did, and kind of, excuse me.
So you water.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Without going in and being confident in your ability to do something, even if you might not know how to do it, I wouldn't have found out that I would have continued to work on. I went on to Atlantis, the second series, for a while.
Were you running on that as well?
Well, on that, I was very fortunate that I kind of tried every department on that one.
Great. Yeah.
Because something I said to the guys upstairs a minute ago is that if you don't know what you want to do in film, you just know you want to work in film, don't wait and try and think of what you want to do. Just jump into a situation and try everything you can, because then you've got that basis of knowledge on a lot of different things, and then from there you can try and hone down to what you want to do. I wouldn't
Okay, that's interesting.
sit
yeah.
outside and think, oh, no, I don't want to go in yet. I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to make a fool out of myself. Just go in and figure out something. So I was a runner. I worked in the prop house. I was a grip assistant, camera assistant, and
This was on Atlantis.
on Atlantis,
Yeah.
just to try everything. I'm not saying that's going to happen every time. I was in a fortunate situation where the crew would allow me to do that. But it was enormously useful because I learnt how each individual cog of a film set works. And being able to do that is incredibly useful because you get a context of how you can get something to happen. If you're asked to do something, you know where to go, how to do it, and what can and cannot happen.
I like that expression. You're a kind of cog, because I think there are all the separate departments, aren't they? But they do work together like this. If you get a good machine, it's like a good film. It's like a well-oiled machine, isn't it? Just talk us through running. What was talk us through your typical day running. What might you do?
Okay.
Perhaps on say Doctor Who
Yeah, sure.
or Atlantis.
Well, if you're ever going to be a runner, prepared to wake up incredibly early and go to bed very late, because it's pretty brutal. It ruins your body completely. But probably be first thing. Probably the most useful thing I found out is, when it sounds really simple, is when you should be on set. Because you'll get a call sheet which is all the information on it, when filming starts, when who's arriving, things like that. And a very good tip is, if anyone ever goes running on anything, is to be on set 15 minutes before the first person is in the chair. And in the chair means they're in makeup and costume. So 15 minutes before, and in case it was always Peter Capaldi was the first person on set in the chair, and that was usually at like 5:45. So you want to be there at like 5:30 in the morning, which is lovely. And then you have to. There's a surprising amount that a runner has to look at, like being mindful of, really. You have to get people's breakfast, which is usually the first thing I ended up doing. I'd take orders for breakfast, and I'd run around and try and get everything, and that continues throughout the day. You have to get tea and coffee for everyone, and usually after being an hour on set already, then filming starts, at which point it's quite difficult to think of everything that you do actually.
A lot of different things.
It's a surprising amount of small things you have to be mindful of.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, I mean, it sounds very simple, and I suppose it is to an extent, but making sure everyone shuts up when you're filming. Because there's a surprising amount of people that really don't like being quiet when you're filming. And gaffers are one, so keep an eye out for gaffers who just seemingly want to talk over every film set for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But like that continues through the whole of filming in the morning, is making sure everyone has what they want. And you do, to an extent, have to kind of care for the cast. Because you are the person who has, well, one of the people that has the most interaction with the cast. Because you have to ask what they want, if they're okay.
Yeah.
You know, you have to put them in certain places. You have to give them marks when they're action. You have to hide the amount of bushes I've hidden behind on set, and you have to sort of do that to give them marks. And you have to get very quickly used to having a radio in your ear, which is horrible. You've got like one of those horrible plastic things that like wedges straight in, and you get earache for the first 2 weeks. You've got it, and you're constantly getting fed information. And I've kind of gone on a tangent here, but
it's good.
Something that's very good to learn as well and to practice is being able to have two conversations at the same time with someone, because you're having information constantly poured into your ear.
Yeah.
You also could be talking to someone, and you also might need to be hearing out for something else that someone's going to ask in the background. So you need to be able to have the conversation with that person. You need to be able to keep check on what's going on another part of the set. And you also need to be checking whatever else you might need to do. So it takes a while, but to be able to balance that information at once is well, part of the job. You just have to do it. If you struggle to do it, you're going to struggle.
No, it's interesting. I think that's good. Finally, perhaps before we go through to questions, Q&As from the audience. From these guys here. What about Atlantis? So when you sort of, it sounded like you kind of shadowed different departments a bit, or assisted in sort of various areas. Just talk us through that, and did you come out the other end thinking, actually leaning towards one department than another?
Yeah. Well, I think what I kind of went in the mindset to do is to try everything, not necessarily to find out that I want to do that. More to go, I didn't want to do that. Right. So you're kind of crossing things off. So
it's more of an elimination rather than...
to an extent. Okay. I mean, I'm not saying I recommend doing this, that everyone should do this, because a lot of people have warned me that you don't want to be someone that becomes a jack of all trades. Yeah. Because someone will think of someone to employ, and they'll think of, me, for example, and they go, what does Jordan actually do? He kind of does this and this. Yeah. And it's about being reliable to be able to do one job very well. So I recommend trying everything, because you do get a broad knowledge of absolutely everything, which is invaluable. But at the same time, focusing down when you can, or at least doing something on the side of that, which is very focused. Like, for example, I've tried different departments, but on the side I edit my own bits and pieces, and I'm trying to teach myself to become an editor. So having something like that, so you can focus one skill more so, is very, well, it's invaluable, but I would recommend doing that with essentially everything, because you can make the most of your time, because you can do something else while you're doing something else, if that makes sense. I've forgotten your question.
I was sort of saying about you working on Atlantis, and you sort of assisted and shadowed, or if you like, in different departments. And, it's interesting actually that do you think you still have to become skilled in one particular area then, or do you think there's room for kind of multi-skilled people?
Well, I wouldn't say that on any set I've been on, it's probably the case for much bigger sets that one person has one role and that's it. So for enormous crews.
Yeah.
But even on something like Atlantis, which was very big, you know, people are one role, but they're dipping into other things to help out doing
Yeah.
things. So the more you know, the broader sense of everything you know is going to be very useful, because someone can rely on you. That, say for example, I did a pilot for ITV recently, and someone was a camera trainee and a DIT, and DIT is digital imaging technician. So they're the person who takes all the data in, all the rushes, make sure they're all copied over on hard drives and things like that. Make sure, you know, they're just responsible for the end of the day's products, basically.
Yeah.
And normally there would be another person who would do that entirely.
Yeah.
But if you're multifaceted, if you've got more than one skill, especially on a smaller level, like smaller crews, there's more chance you'll get hired because you can do more than one job, essentially. It's just, yeah, it's invaluable to be able to have a knowledge of more than one skill, just because you're more valuable.
Yeah.
You know, you're more likely to get hired, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay.
But at the same time, I wouldn't try and learn everything,
No.
because you know there's you might as well do one thing very well rather than spread yourself too thinly over everything.
Jack of all trades,
Yeah,
master of none. Yeah. Okay. That's very good. So have we got any? Should we move on to questions? Yeah, Ross.
Do you think the university course you did straight away, do you think that was like the best route you could have gone down with the qualification you've got here? Like with your experience, have you seen another route that could have been better for you to
Sure.
get into the industry?
I think there's an infinite amount of routes to the industry, definitely. I mean, I know people that have come from teaching and have gone into filmmaking, or you know, not even teaching film. They could have been teaching a language. But I think from what I'd intended to do, or what I wanted university to be a place where I could network with as many people, that was definitely the best route for me, because I surrounded myself with talented people. I met a lot of people who are continuing to do work, which just opens up a lot more doors, and you've got a lot more routes to continue after university. But I know a lot of people that didn't go to university and just went straight into it, and it's definitely something I would recommend doing as well. A lot of people have said that don't go to university because it's a waste of time. That's, you know, may well be the case.
Yeah.
But I think if you don't go to university, you have to have a very strong sense of making everything for yourself immediately.
Yeah.
So it's
real drive.
Yeah, you have to have
really confident.
A definite strong drive, which I didn't have at the time, by far. You have to be able to just go for it. You know, emailing people and everything, and contacting as many people as possible to just try and jump straight into a job beforehand. And I know a lot of people who did do that, and they're essentially 3 years ahead of me in terms of career. But whether or not that's worth more than 3 years at university, I wouldn't like to say. You know, I think they're two very different routes that both provide very different things. But if I was forced to recommend something, I would say go to university. But first priority is prepare yourself for afterwards, and do and make as much as possible. Second priority is your degree. That doesn't mean the degree is worthless.
No.
Do the degree, but always be mindful that it's not the be all or end all.
Anybody else?
Well,
Have Emma, and then we'll go to Seb.
And what is it that made you realise that you wanted to work in media?
it's quite. I've tried to answer this question to myself a few times, and I've never been able to figure out why. I definitely found that I accidentally found myself in this college, in the course I was in. But I suppose
It's quite a hard one, isn't it?
it's a very hard one. I did. This is going to sound really pretentious, really awful, but I did on my dissertation. I did about. It's very broadly worded. It was called "What Really Is Film," which is I don't ever recommend doing a dissertation on that. But something that was really interesting was that the idea of art or portraits, or even going as far back as cave drawings and things like that, is a desperation of humanity to try and immortalise themselves, to try and live further than your allotted time. This is perhaps going a little bit deeper than just like, I really like film. But I suppose film was some sort of a medium to be able to do that. Because it's nice to be able to make something and work on something as your job, to then at the end of it have the credits roll up and your name's there. Like, I made this, I helped in making this. And it's, in a sense, you know, you kind of, you'll live a little bit longer because your name's still there. But I guess that's the kind of a thing that perhaps I went into film to do, or media. But not only that, I do really enjoy it. It's just creating something. It's, you know, it's making something that didn't exist beforehand. Like, you are the reason that that thing now can be enjoyed by other people. I think you should never lose sight of the value of doing that. I think it's invaluable.
Yeah.
But that was
Like
a very
giving
deep, yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. Seb.
What's your opinion on when it comes to crew sizes and stuff? Because I know there's lots of people who prefer to work with a smaller, more like well-knitted crew, or a much bigger crew where people don't necessarily they have like one job each, and then you've got the smaller crew that you have a few people doing a lot more than one job.
Yeah. I think they both have their merits, definitely. And I think it depends entirely on what kind of thing you're doing. If you've got a massive production, you know, a big Hollywood film, you're going to need that many people just because that's the kind of thing it requires. But if you're doing a small production, I think it does benefit having a smaller crew, because that kind of tight-knit sort of community of the film crew does come across in what you're making to an extent. You know, I think if a crew isn't getting on, you know, if it's fallen apart and they're not enjoying themselves, or it's just not a pleasant work environment, that does definitely come across in the performances, in how the film is made. And a smaller crew, whilst it can kind of fall apart quicker to an extent, I do find that if you've got a smaller crew, you do become friends a bit quicker, and you tighten it, and you know everyone quicker, and you can rely on everyone quicker. But they both have the merits entirely, and they both exist for a reason. But from like a student film point of view, I would recommend keeping it kind of as small as possible, but while making sure that every role is covered. Because the amount of films I've done where I undercrewed them, and it just becomes a horrible nightmare, and then because you don't have enough people, then it affects the film. More so than having too many in a film fall apart. I think it's horses for courses, definitely. But the best way to gauge it is that, does everyone have enough work? Does someone have too much work? But yeah, I suppose.
You have to have enough people to keep those cogs going,
Yeah,
I suppose,
definitely.
when we talk about the machine. Any other questions? Alec?
For your future career, would you rather stay in TV, or would you like to branch out into more film?
I think at the point I'm in now, I don't necessarily have the luxury of choice, because I'm still very early days in what I want to do. So, you know, if someone phones me up and says, "Do you want to do this?" I'll say yes, regardless of what it's on. But I suppose I came to college because I wanted to make film. So in the future, if I had choice of what I could do, I would prefer to branch into film. But then I suppose the way TV is changing now, you know, it's changing every day with platforms and how it's made and the sort of reputation that TV has. And whereas you had actors and actresses who would before sort of look down their noses at TV and now desperate to try and get into TV shows, it's changing very much. It's becoming just a very long form feature film.
Yeah.
So I think everything's kind of changing completely. So I'm not sure I even know the answer to it yet, because 2 years down the road, I might be desperate to try and work on a new series. So not that I'm desperate already.
At the moment, you'll take anything.
Yeah, literally everything.
Yeah. Maybe that's a good place to stop, sort of thinking of the future. Yeah?
I did have one more.
Yeah, sorry, Ross, go ahead. One more
Have you
question.
got an ultimate goal? Like, I want to get there in the industry. Like, on the course they talk about, like, dream jobs or whatever. Is there somewhere that you're, like, trying to aim for?
I suppose less a particular role, more that I'd like to have some notoriety within the industry, like to be someone not necessarily famous, because that would be horrible, but to be someone that is known as making good films, or is talented, or is skilled in one particular thing. I think that's my ultimate goal, definitely. I don't know what I want to do in a particular role, whether it's directing, I really don't know. There's a lot I haven't even tried, and there's probably more I don't even know exists yet. But getting to a point where I'm confident and other people can appreciate my work in whatever format it may become to be, I think that's definitely an ultimate goal.
Yeah. Just
Eventually.
being like really, really good at your craft and making something that you're really proud of and
Yeah.
that really stands up and other people like and may make you immortal, I think.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
definitely.
Going back to your thesis.
I know. I suppose that's an answer.
Yeah. Great. Well, that's lovely. Should we have a round of applause actually for it? That was brilliant. Thank